Welcome back, and here we are with the AIM-9M. You asked for it, here it is. Is it bullshit? The answer is yes. And is it going to be like this? Probably not. The developers have said that the AIM-9M is worse in flare rejection than the R73. So hold your horses for now. The flare rejection of it is, however, very strong. You can fool it, as you can see in the clip in the background. This is one of the earlier ones where we kept dodging it. So we are still kind of experimenting, and it doesn't always work. It is definitely flareable. It's a little bit awkward, however, because this has ECCM, which means that it will reject countermeasures. And it does this by shutting off the seeker for a brief second. And as long as you are rear aspect, you can flare it. The issue is the second it gets close enough, and it gets within that head-on, it gets within side aspect, it's basically you are done. The best case scenario for us is keeping someone directly on your 6, and as long as the missile is directly on your 6, it is somewhat flareable. Now of course the way I'm doing it right here is not very healthy for your kilocalories, and you're just kind of eating shit because you are going too slow, and even if you dodge all the missiles, well, you're too slow and you just kind of get third party. Best case scenario that we have found, and I will show you that in a minute here, is by keeping it directly on your 6 and just kind of rolling and flaring and making a bit of a flare flower. Has been the most successful. This were the first iteration of dodging the AIM-9M. They worked kind of okay, but they cost so much speed that it's kind of unrealistic. Pre-flaring doesn't really do much. I mean, this doesn't work. So, are we going to continue doing this? Yes, because maybe I'm doing it wrong. But again, at max range, as long as you have speed, it works. And you can tell that even with the afterburner on, it works. So, no big issue, right? Well, the issue with flaring the AIM-9Ms is that you need basically a list of things that you need to have right in order for it to work. It needs to be fired from ample distance, it needs to be fired from a certain angle, and you need to be able to give it direct rear aspect, and you need to have the speed to actually roll around. The second you start going too slow, the second it comes from head-on side aspect, there's really nothing you can do here, and it kind of becomes a slam dunk. You can tell this works fine, completely fine, but look at my speed and look at my position. If the F-16 really wanted to, he could just park on my 6 and he'd only need like 2 or 3, and then I die. So we started to test it with other planes, with the F-16 for example, and you can tell that I'm not even dropping the afterburner, and most of the time it works fine. This is the second iteration, it seemed to work quite decently. We're keeping the plane a little bit straighter, we're just trying to fly directly away from our opponent, and we're trying to make sure that the flare has the hardest time reacquiring lock by turning into it. Here I'm trying to go into a merge so I can actually get away from the missile. We dodge it perfectly, and there's my patented slam the wall so the missile doesn't kill you method. Now here's the method from his point of view, or from my point of view I should say. First time we rolled a little bit improperly and the missile still tracked. And that's the main issue with this plane, or with these missiles. They are too... They basically have a checklist of things you need to get right in order for the missile to miss. And if you are at the wrong place, just like that one, it will just simply reacquire the lock, which is beyond bullshit. Again, this is probably not how they are going to be dropping live. But this is the state of the AIM-9M right now, if you are wondering about it. We died 100 times making this video, so we shot more than 100 of these missiles. And we came to the conclusion, as I said before, that it is flareable. There is just simply too much you need to get picture perfect. If you do not have the ability to set it up so that you have directly rear aspect, you are done. And the issue is that you basically just have to keep dodging, have to keep rolling around, and you have to keep sitting directly in front of your assailant, that you don't gain any position. This guy is just creeping up onto you, he's getting closer and closer, and at a certain point he's just so close that I can't do anything anymore. Top tier fights are all about position, and with this kind of missile you're forcing them to fly straight away from you, and you are basically forcing them to not counterattack. You see there that with the radar slaving, pre-flaring basically doesn't work. It does work on like 1 second intervals. It can be made to work, so to speak, but what plane has so many flares that it actually becomes feasible? Not very many. Here's flare dodge method 2.5, keeping it even straighter, dropping a few more flares and in quicker intervals, because we noticed that it does kind of disrupt the missile's ability to really do anything. And as long as you do that, it works. But this costs a lot of flares. And then we go into a bit of a side aspect. After this one, we dodge 3 in a row to show you, see, now it does work. We start pulling in, we pre-flare even. You can't really dodge out of it. It just finds you every time. Here is the last iteration, 3.0. Directly on your 6, you just kind of make a flare flower. And for some reason, whenever it gets close enough, the missile just gets spoofed. Why this works so well, I have no idea. Most of the time this even works with the afterburner on. Best we've done is with only 3 flares. I just kind of make a circle, we make a flare flower as we call it. And then the second you see it pull into a direction, you just kind of pull to wherever it's not going. And this seems to work quite well. Here's an F5E. Side aspect, doesn't care. You need to change trajectory. You need to give it directly rear aspect, and otherwise this missile is just going to slam you. And I've been talking about this for a while now. Best case scenario is just an absolute death sentence when it comes to actually trying to fight someone. The way that we are trying to do it is not feasible for air RB, because people are going to be carrying 6 of these things. You need quite a bit of flash, you need quite a bit of energy. The second you are too slow, you can't really do anything about them. These are absolute hell. And I can already hear the comments. It's going to be, yeah, but the R73, yeah, but the MiG-29, yeah, but the F-16 has been artificially nerfed, yeah, but the F-16 is too good. The F-16 shouldn't win versus the MiG-29 at low speed. There is always someone saying that one or the other nation has a bias. And I don't know if you've noticed by now, but the balance shifts every patch so that you keep buying new planes. It's so you keep grinding new nations. It's so you keep spending money. It's not about nation bias. Every nation has bullshit in it, and I don't think the way to counter it is by adding more bullshit. The R73 was something that the MiG-29 did not need. The MiG-29 already had the best flight model for air RB. It had the best semi-active homing missile. Sure, the R60Ms were kind of lacking, but in other areas the MiG-29 absolutely excelled. Now the F-16 gets a better flight model, which was already a buff that I wouldn't say that it needed, but the F-16 flight model was objectively speaking bad. And I mean in terms of quality, I don't mean in terms of performance, because the F-16 still had the best flight model after the MiG-29. Now what they do is they add the F-16C, which has close to the same performance as the F-16 ADF that we had, and give it better missiles. It's of course a pretty minor buff, but we tend to forget about the other nations. There is more nations than just America and Russia. What about Israel? That doesn't even have any BVR capabilities. They don't have any radar missile. What about Sweden that only has the Viggen right now? Now the Gripen is on the way, but can we just stop having a hate boner for other nations and just take a moment to actually appreciate that there is more than just your nation in the game? Because keep in mind, you also have to face against them, but there's only a few nations in the game that will get these missiles. And they are going to be duking it out, and everyone that's in between that sandwich is going to suffer alongside them. So can we please stop with the power creep hate boner and just look at the overall balance of the game instead? And that's all.